I'm Jay Katecha. I'm Managing Partner, Head of Social Content and Strategic Partnerships at Ogilvy UK.
I'm Barney Chappell and I'm the creative lead for Skoda at Ogilvy.
Now, not many people know this, but before Skoda actually made cars, they used to make bikes. So this was a real natural place for them to be in. What Skoda were really doing is bridging the gap with gender equality. And we did this through a campaign called This Is Our Time. And the objectives were actually really straightforward. It was really to drive real change and action in the world. So there's a lot of lip service that happens. There's a lot of brands that change the colour of their logo for a day or a month. But what Skoda really wanted to do is stand out and get people to actually do something.
Skoda have been a principal sponsor of British cycling for a few years and have recently, since 2017, wanted to drive awareness of the fact that although there have been huge strides made in gender equality in sports like women's football, in cycling, there's a lack of opportunity for young women trying to break into the sport. There's a gender pay gap, and there's a lack of kind of media coverage, and also things like a lack of access for women to cycle big events like the Tour de France. Skoda wanted to give a voice to the women who are challenging the status quo in the sport, and in 2018 that was by launching their campaign This Is Our Time, which kind of shone a light on the gender parity in the sport. But in 2019, Skoda came to us with an opportunity to kind of put their money where their mouth is and do a bit more than drive conversation, actually drive change. Although there's no official women's Tour de France, there are two groups currently, official groups, unofficial groups of women cycling every stage of the tour one day before the men. There's the original group Donnons des ailes au vélo, or J-1, who are a group of French women riding the tour one day before the men. In 2018, when we shone a light on their story through Skoda, it actually inspired a new team of women from around the world to form and cycle one day before the men last year. That group of women is called the Internationals. That totals 23 women riding unofficially one day before the men, every single stage. And last year it was the highest tour in history, so the most mountainous, and so therefore probably one of the most challenging tours ever. So we wanted to, as Jay mentioned, drive real action, give the opportunity for our audience to show solidarity. So what we did is we launched a cycling challenge on Strava. Obviously there's a real kind of emerging community on Strava of runners and cyclists, and it's growing even more. Obviously the last few months have seen many more people buying bikes and getting out and doing long rides. But we really wanted to kind of galvanise that community and give them the opportunity to show their support for the 23 women riding the tour. So using our kind of influencer partnerships with Olympic athletes like Dame Sarah Story, and other influencers like Adam Blythe and Julia Elliott, we launched the campaign on social, encouraging people to sign up to Strava and get on their bike. The challenge was to climb 20 million meters in just 1 week. That's as high as every men's tour ever, over 500 tours. We chose to do a climbing challenge on Strava rather than just a regular challenge because it represented the uphill struggle that female cyclists face every day. And it also was something that could be tackled as a team. Obviously, something like a climb can feel kind of insurmountable or even impossible if you're riding by yourself. But in a team, you can do it together. So it kind of really showed that solidarity and team spirit that the women were actually riding the tour were facing. We created a suite of content for our own social channels that was amplified by our influencers across Twitter, Instagram, and Instagram stories. We also created a campaign microsite that did live updates of how many meters were climbed. And there was a competition element to it as well. Obviously, people wanted to be the highest climber. And we kept our audience informed along the way when we'd reached 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, etc. So it really felt like there was a real spirit and community feel behind the ride. Our influencers obviously took part as well, and they were sharing their own climb, and they were sharing their own kind of progress through the challenge every day.
Our target initially was 20 million metres, because that accounts to the same number of metres in the men's Tour de France. We actually managed to get over 45 million metres. So that was a phenomenal success there. In terms of number of people that signed up, we had over 25,000 people that signed up. Our community on Skoda Strava grew by 260%.
In terms of challenges on Strava, there were a higher than average number of women cycling, which meant that more women were getting on their bikes specifically for this campaign. And beyond the numbers, which is personally probably the thing that I'm most proud of, the This Is Our Time campaign led to Skoda being invited to speak in Parliament with British Cycling to discuss gender equality in the sport. And it was cited by British Cycling, amongst other things, like the UN, as a best practice example of a campaign that challenges gender inequality. Power takes over, hey, you know you are invincible.